This is Fan Electric Ghost, and we're live on the air for the first time with Nanette Jenkins, the founder of Breakthrough M2. Thank you for being on the show tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Now, we are a featured podcast on the Newsly platform. You see that icon says listen on Newsly. So if you use coupon code GHOST, you get 1 month free premium subscription so you can stop scrolling and start listening. That platform takes video podcasts and translates them to audio. And then you will be on that platform later tonight. So thank you again for being on the program. This is episode 898 of the Phantom Electric Ghost podcast. We've been on the air
Nice.
since 2016 on Apple Podcast. And this episode, we're going to focus on this topic that is coming shortly, is everything I believe used to indicate, let me see, I'm trying to bring it up.
Mhm.
Everything is black and white, my old way of thinking. So, and then we're going to focus on some of the questions you like to answer. You can probably talk about, you're the owner and founder of Breakthrough. And for those of everybody that saw the link tree up there, it is a link tree / Breakthrough M2. Maybe you can talk about what the company is.
So would you like to talk about the company or the black and white first?
Well, we'll seg into like the topic of the black and white, unless you want to. Maybe that's the beginning point. So it's up to you.
Yeah.
Which one you want to start
So
with?
I started my company 12, 2012, so 11 years ago. I was a high school math teacher and I struggled with my weight for 22 years. I finally found a simple plan that was structured and my head was ready for it. And I just needed to lose weight. I was 50 pounds overweight and I had been thin when I was young, and then I got pregnant at a very young age, 18 and 19. I had my kids, two out of three by 19. And mentally and emotionally, I just used food as my drug. So it just kind of spiraled and, I ended up being overweight for many, many years. I ended up going to college when I was 27 and adding that on top of a third child plus waitressing at the time, part-time college and then full-time. My health and any focus on my body was just not a focus. I just needed to get to the little league field, and then I needed to get to the homework, and then I needed to get to my homework, and then next day start all over again. And so when I was 40 years old, that's when I had tried dieting and all different things my whole entire adult life. And then when I was 40, I found the protocol that I now have as my company, and I turned it into something like much more structured, and I have my own supplement line now. And I've been teaching people how to lose weight and successfully keep it off. And my black and white thinking actually started, it started with the idea of weight loss, of how, it's not always calories in, calories out. It's not always, well, you're not exercising enough and you're eating too much. That's not true. And I can't speak for men as much as I could for women, but women know a lot of times that it has so much more to do with stress levels and hormones and what we're doing with our time, how much sleep we're getting, and all that stuff. And so that was the beginning of it for me. I was also raised in a born-again Christian home, and I was raised in that type of a home since the time I was 13 until I was 48. And it was actually, I think when I was 47 that I started thinking differently about religion and the concept of heaven and hell, good and bad people, and what's, stipulates good and bad people. And being raised in a Christian biblical home, there's very concrete lines to be drawn with right and wrong, sin and not sin, that type of a thing. And
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That was,
Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, I was wondering what that meant because like, I'm a musician, I'm a creator.
Hmm.
And I've talked to that are creative people, we get so caught up in the creative process that we don't treat our bodies right as well.
Hmm.
That a lot of musicians, a lot of like artists, painters, they get so caught up in the creation of what they're doing that
Yeah.
they have a kind of black and white thinking when it comes to their body. Well, it doesn't matter. I'm just going to put everything into the art to the point that it's abusive to your body.
Hmm.
And you don't think about like the holistic point of view. And even though you might be a creative person and you think you're kind of open minded, you have a kind of closed minded points of view when it comes to your own health. So
Yeah.
I've found a lot of people that like they have to get to that breaking point where
Hmm.
they realize like I have to do something because now I've got these health issues and I have to consider the body as part of the whole thing. It's not just being a creative, you have a strong
Yeah,
whole in order to continue.
I do. I understand that completely. Yeah. And that's, well, that definitely happened to me, over the years when I was doing other things. I see that a lot too with people in the service industry, and they take on a lot of other people's emotional burdens. People who are in foster
Mhm.
care,
Yeah.
who are helping nursing homes, people who are all, all of them. And, they take on a lot of emotional burden, and it ended
Yeah.
up affecting their body in a way that they're trying to protect themselves almost, but they really just are so focused on helping other people that they just don't help themselves as much as they should.
Yeah, because nurses can get caught up in the having to put so many hours in, they don't take care of themselves,
Yeah. Yeah. And it's difficult.
and they should wake up in it, all kinds of service, people that are doing all these services, they forget about themselves. And it's not a selfish thing to say, like, I got to take time in the day to
Yes.
actually go and exercise, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm also with like an IT guy. A lot of IT guys will sit there. It's a badge of honor to sit there 14 hours, 12 hours at your
Yes.
desk, and bang
Right.
out the code, right? But the thing is, like, you end up getting diabetes, you end up getting all kinds of problems, and it's like you need to actually go out and exercise and take a break because you don't get diminished results by
Yeah.
doing this thing. You're thinking that you're gonna do better. You're not gonna do better
Yeah.
if you don't actually take care of like the self.
It's true. Yeah. I had the,
So you, yeah,
oh, go ahead.
no, but it seems like you started your company because you started to hit that wall where you wanted to change. You needed to figure out like a path, and you had this. What was like the aha moment? Like when did you kind of figure out the right path?
Yeah. So it had been, I had my brother's wedding I had to go to, and that was in 2010. And I was in the wedding. And at that point, I was 215 pounds. I'm 5'10". So even though, lots of people would say, oh, I was carrying it okay, but it was just chin to ankle. I was overweight. And I'm small framed actually. So the idea of carrying that much extra weight was actually painful. I did like a whole bars and
Mhm.
shake thing to try to lose the weight, and I lost 25 pounds. It took me about 3 months to do it, doing the bars and shakes, and I was very proud of myself. After the wedding, I was driving home, and I was just determined to keep eating healthy, go back to the gym, and just do what I had to do. And within 5 weeks' time, I put on 16 out of 25 back. I wasn't cheating, and I wasn't, you know, doing anything to encourage that. And it was devastating. And so I just got to that point and I said, I'm just going to have to be overweight and happy because this is taking up too much mental and emotional energy for me. And so it was about a year later, and my 60-year-old aunt had come home from Florida, and which seems to be the diet capital of the world. And she lost 60 pounds. It took her, I think it took her like, or 50 pounds. It took her like 3 months to do. And she was 60 years old. And And I asked her what she did, and she's like, "Oh, it's diet. I did this diet." I'm like, ugh, diets don't work. No, thank you. But I kept watching her from the sidelines and just checking in on her, see how she was doing. And it was about September. I was getting ready for another school year, and I, of course, had to get on into my, business suits that I had to wear. And I went to put one of them on that I had just worn a couple months before, in June or May or whatever it was, and it did not fit. And I sat down on my floor and I just started to cry. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't do this. I can't go up another size. I can't do this. And I was just devastated. And so at that point, I called her and I said, all right, what'd you do? And I figured, there's nothing else I have to lose. It's a couple $100. At least I could try. And so she told me, and it was about mid-October is when I finally got everything, got myself situated, got my head in the game, told myself that I'm going to just do it. You're going to just do it for the 40 days and see what happens. And that's it, and I did. And I lost like 30 pounds in like 40 days. And then it was funny because even though I could see it in the mirror, I wasn't noticing it until I went to put on clothes. I'm like, oh my God, I haven't fit in these pants in a really long time. Or wow, this actually buttons so easily. And, that was what I went through. And then I took a break over the holidays, and then I jumped back on New Year's Eve, New Year's Day. I jumped back on the program to lose that last, it was like 18 or 19 pounds at that point. And it took me about a month and a half to do that. And then I kept it off for a really long time, about 4 years. I didn't have any issues at all keeping it off.
Wow.
No.
So did you start to come up with the plan for your breakthrough M2 as a result of that
I did.
experience?
Yeah, it was so funny because everybody at the school district that I worked at kept asking me what I was doing. And so it just kind of kept going and going. And it was so rewarding to be able to share with people how I did it, because this has been the bane of my existence for 22 years. And I was like, I can't believe I can help anybody with this part of their life, because this is such a problem for me. And so instead of teaching math, I was teaching weight loss and empowerment, and it felt really good. And it just started spinning, getting more and more people. And by July or August of 2012 is when I resigned from teaching, and I just decided to do this full time. And that's, when all of it started. And it wasn't an easy trek, but it wasn't, it was well worth it. And I haven't looked back since.
I always think it's really interesting when people can have their own vision and be their own person, when they create their own company. A lot of musicians, like, we are our own brand, right?
Yeah.
We create art is what we really want to do, but we always have to end up having a side job because the way the industry is, it never pays enough. We have to wait for our role. And so it's cool to find other things within the creative space, and talking to people who create their own businesses. I've kind of thread the needle. It's like, well, how can a musician talk to people about that? Well, because musicians, we have our own brands. We create our own image. We sell the widget we're selling is our music. And so the idea of selling a service or a philosophy, is that kind of what your process is like? It's a program, it's a service. It's like, is it like coaching? Yeah. How do you describe what Breakthrough M2 is?
Yeah, it's all of it. We have a whole program laid out. I have a folder that I send to people with the manual. I have one sitting around here somewhere. I have, everything's laid out for them. They have an online dashboard right from our website. We're actually coming out with an app this year, which I'm super excited about. And there's coaching involved. There's the supplements, and there's just a whole process that people do that to get onto the program and then come off the program properly. And when they reach their goal, we still have coaching from the time where they reach their goal until now they're ready to enter non-diet life, right? Because so many times when people reach their goal, it's almost like, oh, we're all done with you. Good job. See you later. And maybe it's almost scary. It's like, but what do I do? What if I gain the weight back? And they get all
that when the yo-yo?
Yeah. There's physical
reasons. The question I have
reasons.
is, like, a lot of diets. Yeah, the yo-yo kind of aspect of
Yeah,
a diet. Child of the 70s, and in the 70s, you'd see diets coming and going, and everybody,
absolutely.
my mom was on it. I could see her trying it. My aunts and stuff, they were all,
Mhm.
and it was never working. It was like it was like the yo-yo. It's like you do it and then you end it, and then it all comes back. And how do you get the sustainability and the stability?
It's funny because even recently, up until the last month, I have been changing up some of the stuff we're doing as far as like marketing. And I keep telling my daughter is like my right hand woman with the marketing, and I keep saying to her, make sure you add sustainable, transformative weight loss, because that's what this is. And we are able to come to that conclusion just over the last 6 months, actually, because first of all, there's physical reasons why people yo-yo. And if you don't get rid of the bad fat and you're eating away at the good fat, you're going to put that good fat back on. It doesn't matter what you're doing. Your body will replace good fat if you used it during a diet. So the key is to attack the stuff you don't need. Your body does not need your muffin top, bottom line, right? So it doesn't need it. It never needed it. It doesn't want it. And if you're getting rid of that, then you are not going to be putting that back on unless you're going back to all your old habits. And I think one of the worst old habits that we have is addicted to convenience. So, it's really
Mm.
important that when people are on the program, they actually have to cook for themselves. They have to shop. They have to portion out their food. They have to do all these things and get it worked into their normal lifestyle for a short period of time, but it has to be worked in, or else they won't have the results. It's not like I have these magic supplements. It's a whole package. It's eating simply, taking the
So the
supplements, drinking.
holistic approach.
It's the whole thing. And it's not just that, it's also figuring out how to get around that irritation of depending on willpower to get something done. Willpower is for a short time frame. It's to get you off the couch. It's to get me off the floor crying, right? But
Hmm.
willpower is motivated by if it's in a negative sense, desperation, fear. Oh my God, I have to go on a medication, or oh my God, I didn't think I was going to turn into a diabetic, or whatever that is what willpower is motivated by. Of course, it can be a positive thing, but I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about most of the people I see, right? So how do we deal with that if people start losing weight and they start feeling better? Well, where's that motivator now?
Yeah.
Wanes out, it doesn't stay. And then we have people falling off. So I have a process that I walk my clients through on how they can connect to that number one motivator and stay connected to that, because it's so important for people to understand. I mean, you've got that trinity in you: the heart, the mind, and the body. And the way I've been explaining it to my clients is that that mind is that bridge between the two. And if you don't have all three of them talking to each other and dancing with each other, you're not going to get sustainable, transformative weight loss. I never tell people permanent, because life comes along and there are times when we go back to our old stuff. We just do, right? I mean, I've been dealing with it for 4 years, and I've put on 20 pounds over the last 4 years. And I'm on the diet right now, and I'm going to get that 20 pounds off. So life happens. Can it be permanent? Of course it can. Is it going to be permanent for everybody? No. New level, new devil, right? You start evolving and start peeling things away, and you start getting to things deeper and deeper into the heart that you have to pull apart and work with. Sometimes we revert back to our old habits to get through it, and
It
then we
seems like
realize.
it's, but But it seems like as a musician, like a lot of times what we do is like a lot of self-analysis to write songs, right? In order to be creative, you kind of have to be willing to be open, right? So the first thing when you're a singer-songwriter or somebody who's a musician is you're willing to take what's inside and what's outside and kind of present it and not be scared of the result. So what happens a lot of times, what I've seen is people don't face their fears.
Mhm.
People have a good relationship with food because they use it like they use anything as a crutch. Like if you're using something to satisfy like something that's missing. But that's not
Yes.
like, and then you overdo it. Like you can overdo alcohol,
Hmm.
overdo anything. Then you can do too much of anything if you don't have a sense of balance. So how do you create like a mindset where you're more to that body, soul, spirit, heart? As a
Mm.
musician, when we find something that connects with people, it's because we've kind of hit all those. We hit the body, the mind, the soul, spirit. We can connect. The sound makes people move. So it makes people,
Right.
think or cry or feel. It causes a reaction. You can see it when you're a musician. You see your audience immediately respond to you, and then you're like, "Why doing it?" So how do you do that with your body when you're trying to lose weight or being like telling the truth to yourself? Is it that kind of thing that you have to kind of tell the truth and
You
realize where
do.
you are?
You know what? And again, I could speak from a female's point of view, and I don't know if men do the same thing. I think that they're pretty close to this too, but I think sometimes it's good to be honest and truthful, and you have to be, but it's a whole nother issue when you are overstepping that, and then you start berating yourself and being a bully to yourself about the fact that this is where I'm at right now. Right? It's really important to be kind to yourself for the fact that, okay, this is where I'm at, because that body has gotten you through, even though we've abused it. And a lot of us get very
Mhm.
angry with the body because the body doesn't seem to want to be it. I said this just the other day, your body doesn't want to be the obstacle stopping you and keeping you stuck. It wants to be the vehicle moving you forward. And it's so ready to be that if we would just stop looking at it as the thing that's stopping us. The body wants homeostasis and balance. It doesn't want to be all over the place and, have all these medications coming in and suppressing and stimulating and all this. It doesn't want any of that. Sometimes it needs it at times if we over abuse of whatever we do, but it wants to be that vehicle moving us forward. And when we can recognize that and just be okay with, okay, this is how my life's gone, this is what I've done, and just move on now, let's do something about it. I think it's really, really important for people to start every morning with the heart, whether it's your gratitude or your meditation or setting your intentions or all of the above. Start every day from the heart space and getting your head ready for the day so that now that bridge is open between heart and body, and reminding that body and the mind how we're going to do this today. And, reminding ourselves why we're choosing to do certain things and keeping that as the foundation of starting our day.
Do you recommend people like do a diary? Like as we tend to have like a diary, or we tend to like have these affirmations where we speak out what we want, right? What we find out as a creative is like in order to bring it out, I actually have to put it out in the world. My head, it never comes out. So if I actually go and I actually say what's inside
Yeah.
and put it down, put it somewhere, then it starts to happen. So do you like tell people to like set like 5 things you want to do or 10 things you want to do? Do you have kind of goals that you verbalize and actually record?
One of the things that I have, first of all, we do encourage people to journal, especially, with how they're feeling and their weight, and just keeping track of certain things, throughout the day and that type of a thing. Um, I am one of those people that has been overwhelmed over my lifetime with all of the checklists and things to do and what I should do and blah, blah, blah. And I've just gotten to the point, I'm 52 years old. I just got to the point, I'm just like, it just needs to be simple. Like, because once I start getting a checklist for myself, if I don't like meet that requirement, I get really annoyed with myself. Like, oh, here's one more thing I can't keep track of. There's one more thing I'm not doing.
Mhm.
And I just can't, I'm like, oh.
Mhm. It's
So
kinda like if
the
you
one
keep it as
thing
like a free. Yeah.
I say that I didn't hear what you said.
Well, the saying is like, Well, I'm a Buddhist and we do like daily affirmations, but it doesn't, we actually like chant or we speak out what we want to
Mhm.
have happen. Now we don't
Yes.
necessarily have it as a checklist, but it's something we
Right.
do every day and it
Yeah.
can change based on whatever you're feeling, but it's something that you have a routine. You don't feel guilty about not doing it. It's just part of the routine. We do it, and we don't try to make it like five, top 10. But it's just
Right.
like if you're trying to like manage something as a project, like a top 5 and top 10 list is a good thing. And whether you make it or not, like what we do in music is a lot of what we do is failure, right? Almost out of 99 songs you write, like one gets through. That doesn't
Yeah.
mean that all those things that didn't work aren't part of the process. So we look
Right.
at it as okay, well, it didn't work, but it got me to this. So these things that didn't work aren't necessarily failures, but you have to kind of acknowledge it. You'll put the work in. It doesn't seem like it does anything, but it brought you to the next point. Is
Yep.
not failure. Like trying to do something and not actually hitting it
Yes.
is not a bad thing. You try to do that. Ivy did 2 of them. Well,
Correct.
two of them
That was
took
better
you.
than
That's still a good effort. You got
that. Yes.
to, make, congratulate
Yep.
yourself.
Exactly. Well, that's one of the things I think is so important, and if you know, uh, our weight, our weight is so connected to our self confidence, our self worth, self value, all the selves, right? Because you can't separate the three, you can't separate mind, body, spirit. It's not going to happen. They're intertwined. You got to deal with the three of them at the same time. And yes, if heart's not happy, body and mind aren't going to be happy, and vice versa. And so it's not fair for us to beat ourselves up for anything that we either are or are not doing. um, but back to your question about the journaling and stuff too, we definitely do want that to happen for people, because it's so important for them to start out their intentions of what they want to do, and how they want to get it done, and all of that. So um, whether or not they record their affirmations and listen to them daily, or they write them down, or however they want to do it, it's just going to be really important that they stay connected to the reasons why they're doing what they're doing, because that's going to get them way farther than trying to depend on willpower, which is just not made for that.
Yeah, because I think like some people, like the people have the term like setting yourself up for failure. Like if you focus on the willpower, like you're always gonna have something that pulls you to the life. Life pulls you
Hmm.
here, pulls you there. You get depressed if something happens. We're emotional beings. You're not always going to be happy.
Right. Right.
It's just like you can't stay happy 100% of the time. There's gonna be something that happens, and then
Yep.
it's like your relationship with food or with anything. If that thing happens, that trigger, what are you going to do? So as you try to get better, or you try to work it out to understand what are your triggers or why are you doing what you're doing, like, and you start to think about it instead of
Yep.
just doing it, and it's like a mindfulness. Like if you start to be mindful of what you do, understand the impact of what you do and what you
Yes.
eat and whether you exercise, like everything has an impact, and then start to understand yourself up. If you don't, like, you get some alpha that says you got to do 100 sit-ups, you got to do 1,000 repetitions. It's like, well, if you don't, are you not going to like just give up and start all
Yes.
over again? It's a process, right?
Yeah.
So if you get into a process, you don't get yourself into the shaming of, oh, I didn't hit the goal.
Yep.
I didn't, well, now beat yourself up. It's like, well, that's not the point, right?
Yeah. And that also plays into that black and white thinking that I had, because I was always that girl who was like all or nothing. And then it ended up being nothing for years. No paying attention to anything for years, because it was just easier to just put it all to the side and just focus on my kids, and focus on church, and
Yeah.
focus on this, focus on that. It was so much easier to focus on everybody else's problems, you know? And I didn't want to be putting myself into that
That's
place of
the thing.
feeling like a failure.
That's a lot of musicians. Like if you think of it, well, even creators. When I talk to poets, writers, any type of creative, a lot of times it's like it is like a black and white. They'll like if they don't think hit it, they don't show anybody it, right? They don't they hide it or they give up, and you get all these people they never finish things. Like you talk about it, they wanted to do this, they do something, they half finish it because they doesn't meet their expectation or they're scared of what people are going to think. And
Yeah.
the big edge is like you have to be not scared of what people think. You have to kind of I'm going to attempt it and it's okay. And then you got
Yeah.
to first say it's okay to yourself, and then
Right.
deal with the next day. But if you can't stop that voice, the inner voice that says, "Oh, it's not good enough," or "Oh, I'm not gonna," then you never do it. So you have to get
Exactly.
past that voice first, and then
That's
build up a kind of tolerance to those other voices.
Yes, yeah. But if you believe in it 100%, then I'll tell you, nobody can tell you any different. If you're there and you got this, and this is what you believe, and this is what you want for yourself, and you're sold out, then nobody can tell you any different. And it's a great place to be in. It would be nice if we could be in that position in all the different aspects and things that we take on in life. But that's part of the process of learning and peeling apart the layers and not being so black and white. It's always going to be somewhere in that shade somewhere, you
That seems
know.
like the breakthrough.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
seems
I
like
had
the
many.
idea of your breakthrough. Like the breakthrough is
Yes.
kind of like because it's kind of like the flow. Like if you get into being a musician, right, you could get into this kind of thing where you keep on stop and starting, stop and start, stop and start, and it doesn't feel that like it flows. It doesn't feel natural. Like a lot of times you'll talk to artists and it's like this song that kind of just came. It just like I trusted myself and I let it flow. I didn't keep on starting and stopping. I just let it kind of come out as a complete thought. Then I got
Yeah.
into a flow and I trusted myself and I let it
Yes.
happen. And I think that
Yes.
equates to like life. Like if you keep on starting and stopping, you don't get on the train or you don't get into that flow, right? Once you get into this kind of connected flow, then it kind of happens because you trusted yourself and you kind of go with it. It's like that start and stop that'll make you like that's always a real big problem what I find.
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah. And you don't allow yourself to move forward and get into that place where you're able to just absorb whatever the universe is just trying to download to you, and you keep putting up those blocks and resistances along the way where it just everything's like piecemeal. But it's the idea of trusting and letting go of that feeling of control but just knowing that you're in a place where, you know, there's a bigger thing out there that has your back. Whether you call it God or whatever you call it, it
Hmm.
doesn't even matter, but there's something much bigger that has your back. And it's a good and loving force that wants to just keep you moving forward and help you. Yes, you're going to have contrast. Yes, you're going to have things that go wrong and just heartbreak and all that. Yes, we get it. But, you know, trusting that source and knowing that you're going to come out, everything is going to be fine. Everything's going to get better and better.
It seems like the philosophy is like there is like this spiritualism, whether whatever religion, musicians, a lot of poets, we kind of believe in this like universal like muse. Like when
Hmm.
you're like an artist, you tap into it and you kind of channel it. Like and
Yeah.
you when you trust yourself, it kind of just happens. Like if you see these method actors or actors that they get into the role, it just kind of happens. They let it be. Poets, the same thing you see with painters, they kind of get into a like a zone. They that flow, that breakthrough, they're like where they trust themselves. They kind of listen to what's inside, they listen to what's outside, they take their experience and they let it happen. And what I've tried to do with being an artist, that those artistic capabilities can be used for other things in life. Like when you
Hmm.
start to feel that kind of connected flow or that kind of stream of consciousness, you can apply that type of technique once you feel how to anything you're having problems with in life.
Yes. Yeah. That's how I feel about, this whole concept. I'm actually trying to put this together. I just started writing recently, and this whole concept of these three parts of me trying to learn how to coexist and learn each other's superpowers, right? Mind has that superpower of being able to manifest and just
Hmm.
keep going, and body has that superpower of being able to, read those vibrations. Like if you walk into a room, you know, you don't even have to know anybody and you could feel the energy in the room, right? And that's like body's superpower,
Yeah.
So I'm just starting to like put this all together for myself, but asking my clients to kind of go along for the ride and, you know, be able to use that motivator to bring in, all three parts and remember them every single day. Um, you know, it's just so important. And I don't bring in too much spirituality into the business. That's me personally. I mean, I was a born again Christian for 34 years. And I know the
Mm.
Bible and I know all of it. And and I'm good with it all, but I just felt that there was so much more out there than that kind of, black and white thinking.
Hmm.
And the first time I had like this aha moment, I was at a business meeting. It was called Peaks Potentials. It was a while ago. There's this beautiful man up on the stage talking about how he gives 10% of his income to these kids and wherever they were, and talked about the thing that they set up for these kids. And oh my God, he was just an amazing human being, and his wife was amazing, and it was beautiful. And I'm sitting there as a Christian at the time going, oh, I bet you he's Christian. And then afterwards I heard him talking, and he so wasn't. He was just a regular guy. He actually didn't believe, in the whole Jesus story and all of that. And I was driving home and I'm like, oh, I just don't understand how we Christians could say that that man is going to go to hell. That's horrible. He's a beautiful human being.
Hmm.
He's loving, he's kind, he's giving, oh my God, how can anybody say that him and his beautiful wife are just going to burn in hell? Oh my God. Like, I was just, oh, it just broke my heart to
Like
think that I was
eye opening.
yeah, how could I think like this? And I have to be honest, that was the beginning of the unraveling for me. And I had gone home and I was just so overwhelmed by that. And I remember sitting on my couch and I said, God, or whoever, all I want
Hmm.
is the truth. I just want the
Hmm.
truth. Whatever that means, whatever that looks like, please give me the truth, because that hurt my heart. And that is not how I want to keep going with my belief system, or my life and my thought process about human beings. It's just not the way I want to go. And things just started unraveling. And I went to this place in Canada for some deep tissue therapy, and I went through this whole day of just therapy, and he's using his elbow, and oh my God, it was, talk about deep tissue. It certainly was. I was exhausted. I was crying half the day, and he was a very spiritual man. And I went back to my hotel room that night, and I was laying there, and I finally fell asleep. And all of a sudden, my whole body just got electrified, and all I saw was a zebra. That was it. And I felt like I was convulsing, and it happened a second time within like 10 minutes of that. And it was just this giant zebra in front of me, and I was just like literally like getting electrocuted. And then it stopped, and I'm just like, what just happened? And then, of course, I have to look it up. What does a zebra mean? And it's all about black and white thinking.
It's like a spirit animal.
Holy cow.
Yeah, that's like, it's interesting. Like, yeah, well, I'm part Cherokee and Blackfoot, Native American, and it's like the idea of spirit animals, but
Yes.
also, when in my life, in my art, where I talk about this expansion. So even within the music business, when people will get into a genre, and it's like, well, I'm only this, I'm only that, like I'm only jazz, I'm only country, I'm only rock, and then they stay in the lane. And what I find, in order to expand your mind and to be more creative, you cross genre. You say, well, why wouldn't I mix jazz with rock, or
That's
jazz
right.
with bebop, or jazz with funk, or jazz with hip hop, or whatever, or punk, or whatever? Why would I put walls? I'm a musician. I should try everything, right? But how am I ever going to expand my capability if I only stay in this one place? And then I say the same idea. We came into my podcast where I only interviewed musicians, and I said, well, I want to talk to other people.
Yeah.
And people say, well,
Yeah.
you're a musician. How could you talk to other people? I said, well, because music is something everybody understands. Everybody loves it in some way.
Yep.
And it has some kind of relationship with it. And it's an interconnected thing. And so how can you weave that interconnectedness between people and topics and make it some cohesive idea? And it's really where you start to break the walls. You start to say,
That's
like, why can't I talk to this person? Or
yes.
why couldn't
Exactly.
I listen to what they have to say?
Yep. And and we see it more and more nowadays, and it's a good thing. So, I mean, it's rough going sometimes, but it's a really good thing.
So I think it's cool that you took this on to make your own company. You stopped being you're a math teacher, right? And did you feel that you took any of that kind of the rigor of mathematics, or did you just say you left that when you got into what you're doing? Does any of that apply to what you're doing now?
I think that, the whole process of going through college, I went back to college when I was 27. I graduated when I was, oh no, I went back when I was 30. I graduated at 36. The whole process of going back to school as an adult and doing that, and, getting a good GPA and earning scholarships and all of that, that was something that I was able to just keep recycling for myself and reminding myself when I started my business of how, at one point in my life, I started from nothing, and then I ended up becoming, a tenured teacher. And here I am starting my business at my kitchen table, and, just keep applying my study, work ethic, and all of that to what I was doing. As far as the mathematics goes, I taught high school geometry and algebra, which I absolutely loved. But I didn't take too much of that with me. And it was really strange because even though I was really good at what I did, and everybody loved me, I'm not being, whatever, whatever. I was a really good teacher.
Like your approach.
Because
You liked your approach, though.
yeah, because I didn't understand math as much as maybe the next guy over who was really good at it. So because I struggled with it and I had to look for the answers, I was able to explain it to kids much better and see where they were going wrong. And so that's the one thing I can say. Yeah, that's the one thing I can say that I did bring with me, because I do live seminars, and well, I did before COVID, but I am a teacher at heart, and I'm able to teach people the science behind it in a very simple way so that they understand, because what I teach people is very counterintuitive, and people are just like, I don't get it. So I'm able to kind of like explain, look, I understand that, but this is how it happens, and then they get it. So the teaching part of it and being able to break something down is what I brought, but not the math.
Well, maybe the ability to do that kind of geometric theorem, like at a high level, just the thinking behind it, like the philosophy behind it, the logic,
Well, the
be able to
geometry, definitely.
translate
Yes.
that to an audience. Yeah, yeah. I think that's the thing you can translate when you can be
Yeah.
like a coach or a mentor, or you're in that kind of teaching thing, is the ability to be able to, like, somebody, you could be a doctor, but you can't explain anything. Like, you
Right.
could be a and you could so in your head and so technical that it doesn't really connect. But the teachers
Hmm.
that actually can affect generations are the ones that can actually get people to understand and
Yeah.
take those things and actually use them. Like, if you can't get people to understand it, like, what are you doing? Like, yeah, well, you created a book and people can read it, but if
Right.
you, as a teacher, is to be able to translate that so somebody actually, learns it and
Yes.
can
Yeah.
and can
And
take
math
a
is a
positive
language. Math is
point.
like
I think that's really
Spanish.
cool.
Math is a language all on its own. It has its own syntax. It has its
Yeah,
own grammar rules. It has its own language, its own symbols, own definitions. That's why so many people hate it because it's so much. It's like learning a foreign language. And, but geometry in itself is really fun because you teach
that's a
people
yeah.
how to have an argument with facts backed up, which is something we don't see a lot of nowadays.
Yeah, yeah, that's interesting because I'm a synthesis, so what I do is I deal with synthesizers that take and mix waves, pulse waves, square waves, and turn them into sounds. So
Wow.
I can take the math, and music is math. We work rhythms and timing,
Yeah.
and we
Yes.
work with frequencies and
Mm-hmm.
waveforms
Up and
and
down.
time. There's 3/8 time, 6/8 time, 4/4 time, 3/4 time, and then there's the frequencies and the scales. And
Mm-hmm.
there's actually a math to, but people wouldn't think about it. But there is, that's how do computers, are they able to write music? Because they can understand that math. The
Yes.
computer can help translate and help us produce our music because it understands the timing, it understands the beats per minute.
Yes. Yep.
So there's like an art and science to what
There
we're
is.
doing, and it's cool when people go, oh, I see what that algebra could be used for. I see what the physics can be used for. Like, try to teach them that and how to use it in video game programming. And then
Yeah.
they're like, oh, now I get it. Now I
Yeah.
get how these shapes can be polygons, and I can actually have physics and affect them and make it a game. Makes it more real.
Yeah.
The kid sees that math being used for something they like a game. Then
Right.
they suddenly say, wow, beauty and physics and algebra, how you can actually use it in real time. And I like to teach people like that, like, wow, now I'm interested in it because
Yeah.
I see the final result is something I like. It's a game.
Right. Right. Yeah. It is interesting.
So if you take something that's hard and you make it digestible, then people will understand it. That's why I think cool teachers, I teach.
Yeah. Yep. Hold on one second. I'm very
So, and
sorry.
it's like some of your favorite pastimes to, like, what? Oh, oh, yeah,
Okay.
something.
I don't know if you can hear that TV. I think he's not listening.
Oh,
Hold on one
oh,
second. Sorry.
oh, I kind of barely heard something.
Okay, good. Um, so I think one of my one of my favorite pastimes is actually cooking. Um,
Oh,
and when I was younger, it was the only place my mom didn't bother me, was in the kitchen. She let me be very creative in there, and she let me do whatever I wanted, and I never had to worry about, you know, her, bugging me or anything. So I always enjoyed cooking. I always
rules.
enjoyed,
She didn't
yes,
put a
my
lot
mom,
of rules on cooking.
she had a lot of rules. So yeah, cooking has always been a favorite pastime of mine, and I do like to dance and I like to sing. I was in the church worship team for many years when I was there. Music is one of my most favorite things, and my first concert was Johnny Cash. I was 12. So yeah,
Yes. I
I
love
like to
Johnny
go.
Cash, Man in Black.
Yeah, yeah. I was raised on country and oldies. And then by the time I got old enough for the 80s stuff, my parents were Christians and we weren't allowed to listen to that kind of music. So, yeah, yeah.
Oh, so you missed the new wave.
I
You
did.
didn't
I
get
did.
to
I
hear
missed
it.
a lot of that stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's interesting. Johnny Cash. My mom was from Morgantown, West Virginia. My grandpa was a coal miner, so Johnny Cash and Hank Williams and kind of out, that kind of classic country, Americana kind of country. The Man in Black. I was really into that Waylon Jennings stuff and Glenn Campbell and
Yeah.
all.
Yeah. Me too.
I really like the song telling, the story writing. Like the telling the story.
Right.
And I like Cash because he was always kind of going for the outlaw or the kind of guy who was on the outs. The kind of, it was interesting characters.
Yeah.
he created these characters that like, wow, that's a different place to start a song where a song is done with that character as the lead. And I was like, wow, that's kind of cool. So I always looked
Mm,
at that, and I liked when he worked with Dylan, Nashville Skyline. That was pretty cool. But
yeah.
yeah. So one of the things you have is one of the bullet points. You would questions you like to answer, like any regrets in life.
Mm.
Probably maybe you already talked about some of them, but maybe you could talk. Expand.
I'm so sorry you broke up. Did I put something specific that I don't remember? Because I don't think I had too many regrets.
Oh, you had a no. You just had a question. Any regrets in life with a question mark is
Oh,
something you
okay.
would answer.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely can answer that. And I could say, looking back, I really don't have any because, and not that I'm not sorry for some of the choices that I made or the people that I've hurt along the way or anything like that. Um, the choices that I made along the way, some of them it would have been easier if I didn't make certain choices. But I don't regret anything because if I didn't go here, there, and the way I did, I wouldn't be who I am and where I'm at right now. Um, again, that's not to say that I could have taken an easier road, that type of a thing. I could have maybe done things differently where, maybe somebody's feelings didn't get hurt or something like that for sure. But I think honestly, if I did have any regrets, it would be, if I didn't go back and apologize to someone, or if I didn't go back and try to make it right. And I always did. So I feel like that would be a regret of mine if I didn't choose to do that. And if somebody came to me and they, told me that, I did something that hurt them or whatever, I want to know and I want to make it right. And I want to hear, yeah, it's not easy to confront somebody, or yeah, it's not easy to talk to somebody like that. But, I also don't want somebody walking through life with a thorn in their side because of something that I might have done or might have been misconstrued.
Yeah, you never know what's in people. A lot of times I try to, as an artist, I try to get people to get into voicing that inner self, right? Because a lot of people, sometimes they think, oh, my partner knows what I'm thinking, but you didn't tell them anything, right? So
Right.
yeah, you think they're going to know it automatic because they're your soulmate or something, and they're just going to know it. It's like, well, if you don't voice it, they're probably not going to know it, right? So if you're an artist, like if you don't speak what's in your heart, nobody's really going to hear it. So you have to be willing to kind of put yourself out there, and that's hard. Like a lot of people have fear, and I think
Yeah.
what I've seen, like with your breakthrough, it seems like a lot of things are getting over the fear. Like once you
Mm.
get over fear, then you can own it. You can do whatever you want. Nobody's going to stop you once you get past that, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Fear that you're going to fail again, fear that you're going to quit again, fear that you're going to give up on yourself again. That type of a thing. That is a very difficult thing, especially especially when it's connected to the weight, and I always say to people, if you use alcohol or cigarettes or whatever, and that's like a bad habit that you have, okay, you can live without that stuff. If food is your drug, you can't live without food. So either you get it
Hard. Yeah, I
right
can't
or
live without food.
yeah. So, it's definitely
But
something that
how
I
do you
think is
get it's how do you get, how do you
yeah,
get a positive relationship with food?
right,
Like if you've
exactly.
had an, like I'd really it's
Exactly.
necessity, but you've made the bad or the wrong choices for your body, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
everybody's different. Some people could eat something and that seems to have no impact. But you
Right.
gotta like know what your body is, right? So it's just because somebody else could eat an apple pie, you don't see any problem. They don't seem to have a
Yeah.
problem. They got high metabolism. They do this and they do that. They're not you, right? So if
Right.
something
Right.
you mentioned something like your relationship with food, you have to understand who you are, who your body is, and what your body can handle and what it can't handle, and your
Mm-hmm.
metabolism and yourself, and just understand it. Once you start to understand like what you eat and what it does. So I think
Yeah.
it's like an education, right? Like you got to teach people, if you eat this is what's going to happen in your body. If you eat that, this is
Yeah.
what's going to happen. So if you understand it, like if you don't just go, "Well, that was good, tastes good," without understanding what the impact is, then maybe that's a core problem right there.
Yeah. Well, and I have to say that the program itself just really it aids you in if you're willing to do the program the way it's set up. You're going to learn a lot about yourself, how you approach food, and how food affects you when you're all done. So many times people don't realize that some of the healthy things that they think are healthy for them are really quite inflammatory. So it's when you take certain things away and when you're willing to stick to that, very structured path that we're giving you, you're going to find out real quick when you come off and you start adding things back in you haven't had in a while. You'll find quickly that, wow, I didn't realize that actually did that to me. And meanwhile, like I said, it's healthy, avocado or coconut or something like that. You just never know. So,
Yeah, people's relationship with like vegetables and fruits versus like processed foods, and
yeah,
like once
yeah,
you realize if you're closer to the source
yep,
without the something being processed, you could have a
hmm,
sweet if it's like a natural fruit without a lot of
yeah,
sugar thrown on it.
yeah,
You can satisfy your sweet tooth without having to go get the processed thing that doesn't really help you, right? It maybe makes you feel good to have that sweet thing,
yeah,
but it's not what maybe you should try the nature thing. And so yeah, I think it's really cool to meet you, and I want people to go to your link tree again, the link tree right
thank
through
you,
them too. And
thank
like that's the central source where you can get everything, right? You can get into your supplements
you.
and
Yeah,
your services and your
yeah,
programs and
we've got
all the
everything.
things that you want to do.
Yeah, yeah, yep,
Well,
thank you.
thank you for being a guest on our podcast tonight. This will be everywhere podcasts are seen by tomorrow. It was on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch tonight. It will be on
Thank you.
Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio,
That's great.
Amazon, the place. We create a landing page, and we can give that to you, and you can do whatever you want with it. We can also
Okay.
send you an MP4, and you can
Okay.
cut it up and use that however you want. We'll send it by WeTransfer, so your fans will have it, and you can choose
Okay.
however what you want to use. But thank you again for being on the program tonight.
I really appreciate the interview. Thank you so much.